So we should have a window that looks a little bit like this. We've got a logo on it, we've stuck a date on it, we've got a login button which will eventually open another window. So let's continue adding some elements to this form. So what I want to try and do is basically break this down. So I have 1, 2, 3 columns. Now we used the window column configure earlier on, but I'm going to put some titles on the top of these with labels, different colors, just to help the person using the app see that it's actually, broken down into sections. So again, let's start with a little bit of a comment, just so we know, the bit that we're doing next is to do with labels. Okay, so this is going to be the column 1 label. All right. So the way that it works basically is we create a label and we put it at the top of the column, then we create another label and we put it at the top of that column, and then the third one. But I'm going to make them different colors so that they, stand out, and it's obvious to the person on the form that each column is serving a specific purpose. Okay, so the first one is just going to literally be the title of the column. So I can just call it LBL underscore title. You can call these, like I said before, you can call these whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. So LBL underscore title. Okay, now if you remember, because we're using the TK library, we have to put TK or TTK. So tk.label. Okay, and then in the bracket there, we have to remember to put this on the window. Okay, now the same as you do with our other label, we want to actually define some text on here. So in quotes, we want it to say something. All right, so build a PC. That's the whole point of the thing. Okay, custom build a PC, build a computer, something sensible along those lines. But I'm going to change slightly the color of this label, the background of it, so that it's a little bit different than the other two. So I'm going to make this one green. But again, you can choose a different color if you want to make yours look a little bit different. And because the background of the label is going to be green, I'm going to change the foreground, which is the font color, to something that stands out against that darker background. So the background is going to be green and the foreground is now going to be white. Now for consistency, it makes sense for our font to be the same across all 3 of these labels. So I'm going to go with Arial, but again, if you prefer, you can use a different font face. So let's go with size 14, could maybe go with 16, something like that. And don't forget, because we've opened 2 brackets, we need to make sure we're closing 2 brackets. Now, exactly the same process as before. We put this LBL title onto the grid. So we have to tell it, as we've done already several times, which column and which row we would like this to be in. So I'm still at this point in column 0, but I don't want row 0 because that's just going to either end up on top or underneath my logo, because that's in column 0, row 0. I want it to be underneath that, so it needs to be in row 1. Okay, I'm going to put a tiny bit of X and Y padding along the axes here, just so it's not, too squidged in together. So I'm going to have a little bit of padding either side. And if I don't like the look of it, I can come back as we did before and increase and decrease these numbers. I want it in the middle, so the sticky will be east-west. Okay. So what we're basically saying is put it under the logo, give it a little bit 5 pixel padding around it, and stick it in the middle. Okay, so we can run this now and see if we get a label. Okay, looks okay. Okay, now because we already did the Windows column configure, they're already the same weight. So the next one we put in will be the same width, and the next one we put in will be the same width because they all got a weight of 1. So this looks fine. It's green, it's white, it's exactly what we wanted. So we want to repeat this process for the options that we're giving people. Okay, so it's going to be exactly the same process 2 more times. So this is going to be the column 2 label. Okay. And the process is going to be exactly the same as we just did, only the text and the color is going to be a little bit different. Okay, so this LBL is going to be for the options we're giving people. So what kind of processor do you want? What kind of graphics card do you want? So this is going to be options, all right? So same as before, tk.label. Okay, pop that on the window. Okay, and it's going to be the same as before. We want to put some text on this label in between some quotes. And this is going to be for people to choose their options. So we can just literally call it options. Okay, and we want a different color background. So what background color would we have for this? Well, again, it could be absolutely anything you want. So I'm going to go with a background color of white with a foreground color, maybe black, or probably black by default. You could go for that, you could go for a blue maybe, or a green, or I don't know, it's up to you. You can make your choice on this one. Use the same font as before. You could just copy and paste this because it's going to be exactly the same. It's going to be Arial, okay, and it's going to be size 14. Close your bracket and then close your bracket again. And then we do exactly the same thing. So we could just make life a little bit easier for us here. Okay, we could just paste this in, but obviously make sure that we're changing the name and we change where we're actually putting it, because this is now going to be in column 1. But the row is going to be the same, the padding is going to be the same, the stick is going to be the same. So just make sure this is LBL title and this is LBL options for both of them. Let's run that. Okay, now we've got build a PC and we've got options. Now it's given us this little tiny gap here because we've got some pad X of 5. If you don't like that, all you basically have to do is just decrease this to 1, or even just take it out. So just decrease that to 1. Okay, that looks a little bit better. It's not quite such a big gap just there. And then the third label, and again, we could just copy and paste and make the relevant changes. Now, the danger with copying and pasting, of course, is that you have to make sure you've made all the right changes. This label is going to be the price. Okay, so we want LBL price. And then when we put it on the grid, it needs to be LBL price as well. We don't want it in column 1, we want it in column 2. So we've now got column 0, column 1, column 2. Row 1's fine, pad X and all the rest of it's fine. We don't want it white and black because we already had that. So we want, some different colors on this one. So I'm going to go for like a blue cyan color. And again, you can decide whether you want the foreground to be white or whether you want the foreground to be, a different color. Let's try white. You might not stand up, so we'll have a look and see. Yeah, I don't really like the white on the background there. It's a bit, it doesn't stand out so well. So I could maybe just change this to blue, or just change the font, back to a black font. That looks okay there. Okay, so we've got our 3 headings there. I think that looks okay. So that is about as far as I want to go in this little section.